Let's make a birthday cake in 5 simple steps. Step 1. Choose the size of your cake. This is based on how many people you're serving. For example, a 6-inch cake, like this, serves 12 to 18 people, depending on how big you cut the slices, and an 8-inch cake will serve 28 to 32 people. But your cake design, or how you decorate it, will factor in too, because let's say you're serving 30 people, so you need an 8-inch cake recipe. If you want to put a design on the side of a cake like this one with painted buttercream flowers, you'll need a tall cake. So you might choose a 2 or 3 layer 8-inch cake recipe, but bake it in 4 6-inch pans to get the same amount of cake but with much taller sides, to make space for your design. The same for this reindeer cake for 30 people. For the face, I need a tall space on the sides of my cake, so I baked my 8-inch perfect chocolate cake recipe in 4 6-inch pans. You might need to adjust the baking time on the recipe, so start checking the layers in the oven 5 minutes before the time stated on the recipe, and you're looking for layers that spring back up when you poke them. I like to put characters on the sides of cakes because they're more visible than on the top of a cake, like this alien O from the movie Home. When the cake is on a dessert table, or you're singing happy birthday, or cutting the cake, it's the sides, not the top, that you're looking at. But for a design or message on the top of the cake, you don't need that height. So you could bake the same 8-inch cake recipe in 2 or 3 8-inch layers, which makes more sense for a design like this. Step 2 is to choose the flavours for the cake layers of course, but also the filling. Strawberry jam, dulce de leche or caramel, lemon curd, chocolate chip cookie dough, or buttercream, which can also be the frosting, flavoured with freeze-dried strawberries or chocolate or Oreo cookies or endless other ingredients. Or use whipped cream for frosting, or cooked eggnog frosting. There are so many flavour options, and endless combinations of flavours. To put this all together, choose a cake board at least 2 inches wider than your cake layers and spread a bit of your frosting onto the middle to act as glue. Push your first cake layer onto that to attach it to the board, and then spread on your filling. If it's buttercream, you can spread it right up to the edges, but for runny fillings, there's an extra step. You can spread a thin layer of buttercream onto each cake layer first, to prevent the filling from absorbing into the cake, but then you'll need to pipe a ring of buttercream around the edge of the cake, using a piping bag. And this is called a buttercream dam, and it acts as a wall to hold the filling within it, so it doesn't ooze out from between the cake layers. Once the cake is assembled, you'll need a crumb coat, which is a thin layer of frosting to completely cover the cake and trap any crumbs that come off the cake while you're spreading the frosting on. It's best to do this after chilling the cake in the fridge for 30 minutes or the freezer for 15 minutes, so it's firm and doesn't slide or wobble or lean as you frost it. You'll typically use the same flavour and colour as your final coat of frosting. It doesn't need to be neat because it's going to be covered up in a minute. Now you're ready for the fun part. Step 3 is to choose a frosting technique. Smooth it with a cake comb, or use any of these techniques from my free online course on 10 frosting techniques, which you can take now by clicking the link to my cake school up in the top of the screen, or the link is in the video description too. Each step is broken down step by step so you can follow along and create stunning cakes. Step 4 is to choose a decorating technique. I have an online course on 10 decorating techniques too, all of which you can do with just an offset spatula or palette knife, or a piping bag, or parchment paper or wax paper, or sprinkles. You'll find this course on my cake school on britishgirlbakes.com too. Step 5 is to add a message to your cake. You can pipe one using a small round piping tip to pipe lines, or pipe tiny dots, also using a small round piping tip. And this is easier, I think, than piping lines, because you don't need to maintain a consistent pressure on the piping bag, and you don't need to move at a consistent speed either. You just go dot by dot, and you can score the shape of the letters with a toothpick before you start, as a guide if you like. Another way to add a message is to create an edible cake topper message, like this one, by melting chocolate and then spooning it into a Ziploc bag and cutting a tiny piece off one corner. Squeeze the chocolate out through the hole to make a message. Then stick a toothpick into the bottom of each letter or group of letters and pipe over it with more chocolate. And you can pour coloured sugar or sprinkles onto the chocolate and it will stick. And when the chocolate sets, after about 30 minutes at room temperature or 15 minutes in the fridge, lift the letters up and push them into your cake. I have another free tutorial on edible cake toppers, and the link is in the top of the screen and in the video description. So, are you ready to make a birthday cake? Ask me any questions in the comments and visit my cake school on britishgirlbakes.com to take my free course on 10 frosting techniques. See you there!